Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Today's episode of the Visibility Factor podcast is brought to you by Amplify You, the ultimate program designed to unleash your full potential and amplify your success. Imagine having a personal coach cheering you on, guiding you through a journey of self-discovery, and helping you break free from those limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. That's exactly what Amplify You is all about. Whether you're a leader now or aspiring to be one, this program is your ticket to a more confident, empowered you. It's like having a supportive friend in your corner, encouraging you to dream big. It's about having the career success that you want and creating a life you truly deserve. Amplify You offers a unique experience to help you build the confidence to tackle any challenge life throws your way. If you're interested in learning more about the program, please visit susanmbarber.com and click on the menu item Programs. Are you ready to transform your life and your career? Let's make it happen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. Today, we're going to talk about where you're spending your time. Are you spending your time on things that are valuable and making an impact, or on the easy things that really don't make a difference? I created a video on Instagram and LinkedIn recently on this question and shared some insights. Today, I'm going to share some of those insights with you and have you think about your time and how you spend it. So I want you to imagine your calendar. You probably have, much like I used to have, 3 presentations, 15 meetings with various people, 6 meetings with your team members, and probably in your personal life have multiple sporting events for your kids that you need to attend after work. Now, some of you may be thinking, how on earth could that be real? I can tell you it's absolutely real, and the way that many people will be spending their week. It seems crazy, but this is actually probably conservative for many. It can be a lot more hectic than that. There were days when I had so many meetings to attend and so much to do that I just couldn't do anything. Has that happened to you? I had literally just take a few minutes to sit still and think, what are all the things I have to do? And the list could be long. The priorities were all, top priorities and absolutely had to be done that day. So I took the list and I started figuring out how to get it done. It meant I had to delegate some things to people. It meant I needed to ask for help from other people. And in some cases, I did part of it myself. I also looked at all the meetings that I had to decide if I really needed to go to them or not. Sometimes we get in what I call meeting mode and don't realize that those meetings need to be reevaluated periodically to see if they should be changed or canceled, or maybe someone else could go in my place. But if you keep looking at your calendar and just following all the meeting schedule that you have without considering that, you'll just never have any extra time. And I bet if I took a poll right now and asked leaders to share what their biggest challenge is, a lack of time would be near the top of the list. If I asked them what's taking up all of their time, I might hear too many meetings, bigger workloads, less resources, and I have very little time to think. Everyone gets the same 24 hours each day, so how do some people make it work while others struggle? I believe it comes down to making a choice. How do you want to use your time? How do you want to be perceived? The leader who is too busy, or the leader that is strategic, who has time on their calendar and is available to others? My former CEO shared a message with our group during a company-wide presentation when we were about to go through a huge acquisition with an aggressive timeline to meet. She was worried about how the organization was going to handle this and the stress that it would put the company under to deliver on time. So her quote to us was, "You can do anything, but you can't do everything." She wanted to make sure that we focused on only what was absolutely necessary to get done and be ruthless about that, not try to add other things in that just didn't matter anymore because of this change. And I think it was a really great call out for us to hear that from her and know that we had that license to have those conversations about what we needed to take off our list. I've shared this same message with clients when they're overwhelmed and struggling to move forward. There are choices that have to be made each day with the time that's available. I will ask clients, are you trying to do too much? The answer is usually yes. Then we talk about what they are working on. Based on what I've just heard, I may ask, are you focused on the high value work? That answer is actually usually no. They recognize that they're not doing the high value work. Why would they spend their time on low value work? Well, usually it's because the high value work is more of a time commitment, it's more complicated, takes more time for them to get other people aligned. There are a host of different reasons. But obviously, working on something that's administrative or you're the only one who has to do it, but may not be high value, makes it easier, right? So the harder high value work is going to take more time, but it also gives you opportunities to be visible. It helps the company move something forward. So when you're trying to decide what to do with your time, let's think about these questions that I'm about to ask you. What actions can you take that will give you the biggest return on your time investment? So even if it takes you more time up front, for example, could it have a bigger return on investment for the company, a higher value project, more opportunities for your team to work on something with more exposure? You have to think about where your time is being spent. What is at least one action that you could take that would help the company move forward on its business objectives? Even though people may not say it, they want to know that their work matters, that the time that they spend on their work is worth it, and that they're going to get some recognition for what they're doing. And the last question is, what project or actions will help you and your team gain visibility and get in front of your management? You might be surprised to see that last question on the list, but you only have a finite amount of time if you're just working normal hours, and you have to be strategic in where you spend that time. The choices that you make have to be a win-win for you and the company. So here's a way to start to think about your time. I made something up called being intentionally focused. You can use the acronym BIF. I've taken that acronym and broken it out into a little bit more detail for you. So the first one, the B, the being, who are you being for yourself and for others? Do you maintain your boundaries or let others take over your time? Imagine that you're holding time on your calendar to work on your project. Someone sends it through a meeting request to meet with you at that exact time. What do? You don't automatically have to say yes unless it's a major crisis. You always have a choice to say no and share alternative times that you can meet with them instead. You don't have a responsibility to meet everyone else's needs and worry about what they are doing. You do have a responsibility to your time and what you need to do to get things done. And I think most people who have a struggle with boundaries or are people pleasers will automatically say yes because they feel like they have no choice. And I want to empower you to know that you do have a choice. You can ask some questions about the urgency of the request or why they need to meet today and say that you're working on something that's really important and you need to finish that. And then you'll meet with them next week. Most people are going to say that's fine. They probably just saw time in your calendar and took it without thinking about it. The next one's intentionally. This is about thinking bigger. What is the intention that you have for your career? Do you have a plan to reach your career goals? What needs to get done this week by you or needs to be delegated to others? You need to plan time on your calendar to make that happen. Take a look at your week in advance and plan out some time to do the things that you need to do and get them accomplished. If you create more time, what would you do with it? Just imagine that for a second. If you freed up an extra hour a day or an extra 2 hours a day, what would you do with your time? Slow down, be intentional, and it will help you speed up to focus on the right things. Review what you're saying yes to that may cause you to say no to yourself. A lot of times we're giving up our own time, we're not sleeping, we're giving up our time for everyone else but ourselves. Look for opportunities to design your week the way that you want it and prioritize your time, or others are going to do it for you. And the last one is focused. Are you focused on the high value activities, or do you come in and only do what's on your calendar that day? I can definitely say that was something I would do until I recognized that those are things that I can change. Those are choices that I can make. Leaders can fall into the habit of being busy on low value tasks without the awareness of it even happening. Instead, focus on what gets you the results, helps you gain visibility, and allows others to see your capabilities and the results that you can generate. For example, are you having influencing conversations? Are you managing up, developing your team, doing strategy and planning? If you're a senior manager or director and above, your time needs to be highly focused on these areas. As you can see, there is some overlap between these categories. Observe your day and assess which one would help you the most before moving on to the next one. You can just start with one of those and pay more attention to it. Leaders will tell me that they're overwhelmed and don't have time to focus on their visibility. When they take the time to slow down and be strategic with how they spend their time, they accomplish more, they show their value, and become the leader that others are inspired by. So think about taking just even an hour a week to spend your time doing some things that are out of the ordinary for you, that show visibility, that show that you're meeting with more people, that you take the time to plan and strategize. You have to find that time because other people are happy to put meetings on your calendar and take your time. So you have to be a little bit more ruthless with your calendar and boundary driven and don't let them just take it. I want to spend a few minutes diving into this concept around your calendar. You have an opportunity to look at it maybe a little bit differently based on what I'm talking about today. I wanted to share some examples of what some of the people that I'm coaching are doing just to give you ideas that you might want to consider doing for yourself. So, blocking out time in the morning, the first half hour of your morning is blocked out for you to plan your day. You decide what 3 things you want to accomplish today and schedule it in your calendar. It gives you time to look ahead at the week or even into next week and see if there's anything else that's going to need your attention. There's a couple of alternatives to doing this morning block of time if that doesn't work for you. You could do something at the end of the day in preparation for the next day, or looking at your week ahead on Sunday night and putting time on the calendar to plan out whatever you need to get done. Then it just becomes a quick check in to see if anything's changed along the way. This is really a great way to take the time to slow down and think about where you need to spend your time. You can also put time blocks on your calendar for thinking and planning. For the leaders who live by their calendar, which I was definitely one of them, if it doesn't get scheduled, then it won't happen. When you have to work on big things that require a lot of strategic thinking, then you can block your calendar to give yourself that time. Take the opportunity to find a place and go think. It may be a conference room or somewhere else that is quiet. This is a strategy to let you run your calendar versus having your calendar run you. Some leaders will hold this time each week or even daily to give themselves the time to slow down. And especially if you're working on something really complicated and high exposure, you need to give yourself that kind of time. The last thing that I can recommend is what I call a free write. Leaders have a lot of ideas, thoughts, and challenges running through their heads at any given moment. Sometimes I will suggest that they need to clear it all out so they can focus. One way to do this is to get up in the morning and write down all of the things that they're thinking about in a notebook. It can be anything that they want to write. It could be their to-do list, conversations that they need to have, ideas for new projects, or possible solutions to a challenge. Whatever comes to mind is just written down. It has to be written, though, not typed. Writing taps into other parts of your brain and allows you to free write the thoughts that show up. Some people like to start with a prompt. So here's an example prompt you could use. A problem that I need to think about is fill in the blank, and then write about what those challenges are, possible solutions, what could help you move forward on it. Another approach can be to ask yourself as many questions as you can about the problem that you need to solve. Don't filter anything. It helps you look at the problem from a different perspective, figure out who could help you, and perhaps identify a new way to solve it. In all of these approaches, it is the simple act of taking the intentional time to think that makes all the difference. It frees up space for you to see new possibilities and look at alternatives. When things get too busy, it becomes easy to select the options that are right in front of you, but those may not be the best right choices for the situation. Leaders may not be given time to think, so they have to find a way to create it for themselves. Try out one of these options for the next few weeks. See if it makes a difference for you. Do you feel calmer? Are you feeling more strategic and proactive with a plan of what you want to accomplish versus reactive and living by your calendar? It's a good experiment to try. Now, lately, I've been taking a more serious look at all the things I have on my plate too. And are those things I should be doing? We all only have so much time each day, and spending time on the things that aren't adding value isn't a good use of time for anyone. But if you're really trying to accomplish the goals that you've set for this year, then it's a good opportunity to at least review where your time is spent and look at the things that aren't adding as much value. Review the things that you're working on each day and see if they make sense for you to do anymore. Can you stop doing them, delegate them, or outsource them to someone else to do instead? How many things are you doing just because you always have? That's one I think is really a common situation, right? Well, we've always done it that way, or we have been having this meeting for years. Of course, we're still going to have this meeting. At least ask the question. Are you getting a return on the time investment you're putting into it? Think about a meeting with a lot of senior people that you have every single week for 2 hours, for example. How much money is the company spending to have all of those people sit in a room for 2 hours? And if it's not a value added meeting, then it really probably doesn't make sense. Either pare the number of people down or really make it focused, and maybe you only have to meet for a half hour. It's so easy to just keep your head down and just keep trying to get everything done. Now it's time to pick your head up, look at your list, review it, make some decisions about meetings or the things that you're doing. Are they necessary? One of the ways that you can start to do this is to do a what I call a start, stop, continue list. So looking at your list, the continue list has all the things that still need to be done. Maybe you can find a simpler way of doing them or look at it differently or delegate to someone else. The stop list has things on them that just don't make sense anymore and aren't adding value. Stop them completely and free up some time. The start list now includes things that you want to add, things that are adding value that you didn't have time for before, like visibility, other things that you can do to get in front of influencers and plan and be more strategic. This is about being aware of how you are spending your time each day and are you doing the most with it. There's a quote by Charles Broxton that says, "You will never find time for anything. If you want time, you must make it." Going through this exercise might provide you some insights into how you spend your days and give you back the time that you need. The other side of this, we've looked at work in depth here, right? But the other side of this is your life. Are you doing things that make you happy? Are you spending all of your time on work and not taking time for yourself, family, and friends? So there's a few ideas here that a friend of mine, Carson Tate, wrote an article called Five Ways to Make Space for Joy in Your Life. So we talked about having space for visibility, which I absolutely want to encourage you to do. But I don't want you to do that at the risk of yourself, right? Not having time for yourself, your own self care, taking care of you and your family. So as we talk about creating time in your life, look at things from both sides. So she gives 5 different ideas here. Decline or shorten a meeting. So when I think about these things, what I want to share with you is looking at how many meetings have you been attending that seem to have no purpose and accomplish zero outcomes. We all have been there. Look at the intent of the meeting and if your presence really adds value by being there. If you focus differently, could you be done in 30 minutes instead of an hour, like I mentioned? What if you delegated meetings to your team and they kept you informed instead? These are opportunities for your team to develop, and by sending them into conversations that might be a little bit challenging for them, it's going to help them grow. You need to go to meetings with certain senior leaders, one on ones with your team and staff meetings. Those I would never want you to take off your calendar. But other than those, you need to weigh out the ROI of attending these conversations that may not make sense and decide what makes sense for you to go to instead. Clear the mental clutter. Do you find that you have a constant to-do list running through your brain and taking up space? Just like I mentioned earlier about writing down all the things that were bothering you or questions or problems that you're having, do this. You can do it either in the morning or you can do it right before bed. Getting all those things out of your brain frees up space to be able to come up with new ideas and be more creative. Create a stop doing list. So we talked about the start, stop, continue. Here's some questions to think about with the stop doing list. What do you need to stop doing? Things that aren't serving you well, things that are not benefiting you, not giving you visibility, not helping you grow and develop. Are there things that you're doing that don't align with your goals or priorities? I can't tell you how many people, I can't tell you how many people I talk to who are doing things that have nothing to do with their goals. Someone asked them for a favor, and so they're doing that, but it doesn't actually help them, it helps the other person. But then they're not getting their own stuff done. Are you doing these things because you always have? It's a very good question to ask. We get in a rut and we don't pay attention that we've always been doing these things. You can spend these non-value add activities and proactively spend your time on the right things instead. Get into a workflow. Batching is a good way to start to look at the activities that you have to do. Can you batch certain things instead of jumping from one activity to another? Whenever you have to start something and start another thing, it takes time to get into the new thing. And then if you jump back to the old thing, it takes time to get reconnected with it again. So think about maybe all of your one-on-one meetings on one day, or your mentoring meetings on the same day, or all your administrative work on Fridays, or maybe you look at your goals on Sunday night, as I mentioned, or Monday morning. Find ways to batch things together so that your brain is focused on one type of thing. It makes it so much easier than jumping around. Schedule these activities based on your energy too. Some people are morning people, some people are afternoon or evening people. But think about when you have the most energy and when you need the most energy to do those things. So for some people, like strategic thinking and all of that, maybe it's better for them in the morning because they have more energy. For others, like me, sometimes late at night, I have more energy, and that's when I would use that time to do it. So you have to look at yourself and where your energy comes from and when you need that energy to do certain things. And the last one is stop shoulding, shoulding, shoulding all over yourself. Say no to the shoulds and say yes to the things that are moving you forward. We operate from a lot of shoulds in our life, like we should do this. And those are things that come from our families, culturally, society tells us certain things we should do. Companies even have shoulds, right? So everything that's around you, question those shoulds. Are those things you really need to do or not? So hopefully this list has given you some new ideas of where you can open up space in your life. Even if you only start to implement one of these ideas, you're going to start seeing changes in how you're spending your time and what you are accomplishing. Leaders need time to think and plan. You can be really busy, but not ever accomplish the things that you really need to be doing instead. The challenge is that you are doing what you think you should do. So my management moved me into this role because I was really good at the last role. And now I need to prove myself by giving my team the answers so they can get things done, right? This is all of that should stuff, right? We're operating from stories of, I have to do this. I have no choice. I need to. Is this what your leader did for you? Think about when your manager became a manager, right? Did they give you opportunities or did they do everything for you? Leading a team doesn't mean that you continue to do all the work, but you also don't give them all the answers. They have to learn how to do things on their own. You have to think about not being the superhero anymore. So when you got promoted into a management role, you were probably a superhero, and that's why they promoted you. You got things done. You're really great, but you can't be the superhero anymore now as a leader of a team. You have to create new superheroes, which means giving them opportunities, pushing them out of their comfort zone, putting them into situations that are uncomfortable for them. That's how you learn and grow. Your focus has to be on getting things done through others and helping them become leaders. The people who are the doers are your team members. You are now doing different things like influencing, coaching, and thinking. For most new leaders, that list of things isn't easy to put on a to-do list. And so they feel like they aren't doing what they should be doing. But planning and being more strategic, those are important things to do, but maybe aren't as easy to measure. But it's important that you do it. They're higher value activities to focus on, especially as you climb the ladder. So getting used to putting some time in your calendar for that will prepare you as you move up in the organization. It won't feel uncomfortable. It'll feel like it's just part of what you normally have been doing. So your visibility action step for today is I wanted to share something I learned on a podcast by Brooke Castillo, who is a coach, and she has her own coaching school. And she shared a couple things that really made me think, and I thought it would be beneficial for this conversation with this topic. So she talked about the Pareto principle, which is the principle that states 20% of your actions will generate 80% of your results. So where are you spending your time, right? If 20% of the time that you spend is actually generating 80% of your results, well, you have to look at that and say, is that the results that I want? Are those the things that I really want to be accomplishing? And if those results are not lining up with your goals or objectives or the things that you want, then you might need to shift those actions to do something different. She also shared a second concept called an action audit, which helps you look at your actions. So she suggests at the end of the day, look at the results that you got that day and whether the actions that you took helped you or prevented you from getting the results that you want. How many results did you get? Were they the results that you want? And if those results aren't the ones that you want, then you have to go back and change your actions. Maybe you have to take more actions. Maybe you have to take different actions. But it's a way for you to start to audit yourself and figure out if you're showing up in the way that you want to, or are there different conversations or things that you need to do to make that happen. I'm going to share the episode link in the notes for this episode. So thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.